Today we're going to go over the market values of 3 different wide receivers in Dynasty Fantasy Football. We're going to be doing this all off season long. I'll do a video to a week covering 3 different players, covering over their values for trades, ADP, and everything else. If there's somebody you want me to cover, let me know in the comments below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss one of these episodes. But let's dig into our first wide receiver. This wide receiver is very high up there on ADP, about as high as you can get there. And I figured I'd cover a top guy, a middle guy, and a lower guy just to get you something from every spectrum here. And the guy we're going to talk about here as our top dude is Justin Jefferson. ADP of 1. Top player off the board in ADP, in drafts. Not a surprise. Also, the wide receiver 1 in DLF ADP for December. Turns 24 in June. So far on the season, has caught 124 balls from 1,771 yards and 8 touchdowns. He's averaging 2.64 yards per route ran, 10.8 average depth of target, has a 29.3% target share, and he has a 39.8% market share of Minnesota's air yards. So he's getting a lot of volume, he's getting a lot of production, which we all know about that. But we want to look at the trades that's happening with him. This is what we're seeing on the trade finder. Jefferson for Treylon Burks, a 2023 first and a 2024 first. Jefferson for Devontae Adams, a 2023 first and a 2024 first. We're seeing Jefferson for Rashad Bateman, 2 2023 firsts and a 2024 first. Jefferson for Amon-Ra St. Brown and TJ Hawkinson. Jefferson for Breece Hall and T. Higgins. There's not a right time to buy, sell, or trade Jefferson. He's going to be expensive no matter what. If you want him, you're going to have to save up to get him. I do not recommend decimating your roster and just doing a rebuild just to have him rostered on your team. That's not a smart way to go about it. But if you acquire chips over time, maybe through other deals or whatnot, maybe you can get you some Justin Jefferson. You may be able to pull it off right now. I do not see his value decreasing whatsoever. I look for him to be a talent that's productive for years. I look for him to be valuable in Dynasty Fantasy Football for years. I look for him to age like a fine wine. I feel like he's the perfect asset to get, and the market says so. Since he has an ADP of 1, since he's always the first player off the board, the wide receiver 1, the overall 101 of startup drafts, I don't see there's any other way to do it. You're going to have to spend multiple first-round picks to get him, like Treylon Burks in 2 firsts, Devontae Adams in 2 firsts. So a good player who has some value, whether they're aging or not, they're giving you production, or they got some upside, and you got to get some firsts on top of that. Or you get a speculative player like Rashad Bateman, who has some value, and then you also get even more firsts on top of that. So 2 firsts and another 2024 first. So this adds up. So he's not going to be free. You're going to have to back up the Brinks truck if you want him. If you're looking to sell, it just depends on your situation, and what you're going to be looking for is whatever you want. Whatever you want. We got a baseline here of these trades here, and you're going to be looking for multiple firsts. You're going to be looking for a player, and you want to make your team better. Even if Jefferson continues to light it up, which you probably will for the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, you don't feel bad about it because you had to make that move, and you got a lot of pieces. The Brink truck's backed up to your door, and you were able to make out. I don't see him failing anytime soon, but whenever a player's up there at biblical proportions, anytime's a good time to sell if you need to. If you need to. That doesn't make the player sell. Just in the right circumstances, if you need to make the deal, make it happen. That way you got those pieces. Say you got him and you're rebuilding and you need to make something happen. You got the gold goose here. If you can get the deal done, you get the deal done. A lot of times you can't. Nobody wants to make this deal where they're giving up 1 million first-round picks, a top-tier player on top of that. There's not a lot of people who want to make that deal. It feels dirty to do it. It hurts to make that trade. So you're going to have to find the right guy to trade with. You're going to have to find that right dance partner. That's the one thing. It's not criminal to hold him either, but it's just a hard guy to really move in dynasty trades right now. And you'll find somebody if you really want to, but I don't suggest selling him just to sell him. He's a guy that is a cornerstone player, and if you got to unload him, it's just got to be due to circumstances or the right deal came your way and you just got to do it. He's not a sell. He's a guy that's going to be a cornerstone. But sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Moving on to another player here. He's an older wide receiver, middle of the spectrum, and he's been valuable throughout his career. But the dark days are coming, like with all older wide receivers. And the player we're looking at is Mike Evans. December ADP, he's being drafted as the 58th player overall. Wide receiver 30, turns 30 in August. So far on the season, he's caught 77 passes for 1,133 yards and 6 touchdowns. He's won a lot of people some championships this year with that last performance. Has a 19.7% target share and is averaging 110 air yards per game. So even at an older age, he's still getting downfield and making things happen. He has 3 wide receiver 1 weeks, 3 wide receiver 2 weeks, and his contract makes him an easy out around 2024. So you still got a little bit of time with him if you want to pony up for him because you got some short-term production that you can bank on. So he's also getting 110 air yards per game. We should see that happen next year, him getting targeted deep. Injuries have been a factor off and on through the last few years. That's just something that happens with these players. But here's what we're seeing on the trade finder. And some of these are higher than expected because we're going into playoffs and people wanted that player who could be productive. So they paid up for that. And that was Evans. So Evans for Rashad Bateman. Evans for Deebo Samuel. So Deebo Samuel hurt. So they got rid of Samuel. Got Evans so they can make it through the playoffs. Evans for Chris Olave. Evans for Deshaun Watson in 1 QB. Evans, a 2023 first and a third. Evans for Jeff Wilson and a 2023 third. This is all over the place. You can tell like the back half of this list is more his true value, and the other values were people just paying up so they can get a player that can score for them for the playoffs. No matter what their circumstances was, they were making sure they were competitive to get through the playoffs. But Evans, a 2023 first and 2023 third, is a little high for me. I would like to get him a little cheaper. I know that's probably the sweet spot to make trades to get it done with him. But him turning 30 this year, him getting air yards and work means for me that I'm only getting short-term production. But I don't want to pay up for that because I can really just draft a guy, go a little cheaper on another guy, and maybe get 90%, 80% of the production. Maybe instead of 3 wide receiver 1 weeks, I get 2 or something along that baseline. So I'd rather go a little cheaper. I feel like this price will dip in the summer, especially once people start looking back on his age, start looking back at his overall career, looking at his contract. The best time to sell was a few years ago when the price was higher, but right before the season's always good because you're looking at him being a potential point getter for your fantasy team. In season, right before the fantasy playoffs, if he's healthy, if he's producing, that is a good time to sell. And then rookie drafts are always a good time to sell anybody because your league's being the most active. I want to get him at a cheaper price point compared to some of these deals. I feel that can happen over the midsummer, maybe during rookie drafts when the picks hold more value. I feel like I can catch him at a cheaper discount. And I only want him if my team dictates it needs a player for short-term production. If I'm middle of the road, or if I have a team that's rebuilding, rebranding, retooling, or whatever, I'm staying away, and I'm not going his way because by the time my team's built, he's probably going to be out of the league, or the downturn, or I'm just risking that. He could be still in there for all I know, but I'm just not taking that risk, paying those picks, paying those players just for a year or two of production when my team's not going to be competitive for that year or two of production. If you need a rental for 2023, maybe 2024, this might be a good guy to go for considering he's still getting those deep targets. But that's on you. That's on your decision. We went over the market here to help you out to find the right deal. Looks like a first and a third pick-wise on a small sample, but I would stress to try and get him cheaper over the summer when the picks become more expensive and people start looking back at his age and the future of his career. Moving on to this next player, we're going over another older wide receiver. He hasn't been on the field much. Injuries have been a big bugaboo for him, and that's Michael Thomas. ADP of 156 player off the board on average. Wide receiver 70. He turns 30 in March. He caught 16 passes this year. His last 1,000-yard season was in 2019, so he hasn't had a 1,000-yard season in this decade. Played 10 games in the last 3 years. Per his contract, we got a few more years left in New Orleans, but it's not a lock. He might be out this year. We got to really watch the tea leaves this offseason. Here's what we're seeing on the trade finder, and again, this one's all over the place too. Thomas for James Conner. Thomas for Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson. Thomas for Adam Thielen. Thomas for Jimmy G and 1 QB. Thomas for Kenny Gainwell. Thomas for 2023 third. Thomas for Andy Dalton and 1 QB. The best time to buy will be during rookie draft season. 1, your league's more active. 2, your picks are worth more. And 3, you can really gauge the market or the talent that's on the board. And that's only if you want to speculate on him coming back and getting some sort of production next year and the year after. He may not ever be back. It might be over for him. But if you're in the mood of speculating on him, I would get him as cheap as possible. I think a 2023 third is probably going to be the sweet spot where you get deals done at, because no one is going to really give him away. They might as well just hold him and let him rot there. But you might be able to catch him cheaper in the right deal if you get creative. Maybe if you're trading back a spot or two, you get him as a throw-in. After all, he's wide receiver 70 and ADP, so what kind of risk is that? There's no real good time to sell him. Maybe right before the season if there's some hype. Maybe in season if he's showing some life. Maybe right before the playoffs if he's been productive. But during the offseason, during the summer, there's going to be a lot of speculation, and a lot of people are going to stay away. His value is probably going to dip a little bit more, especially when we infuse the rookies into ADP. But I can also see him increasing a little bit in value, just a tad, maybe more on the trade market than ADP right before the season if he's still in the Saints and he looks like he's going to be a starter, getting reps, getting snaps, looking like he's going to be a key piece of the offense. He's a player you want to watch. If you have him on your roster just chilling, you just have to make a decision. You may want to just hold him. You're not going to get much in return either way, because it's still a gamble. No one's going to pay you a first. No one's probably even going to pay you a second unless he starts going off, which is highly unlikely considering what we saw the last 3 years. But think about this. You may want to hold him and just let him rot, and maybe he comes back and gives you a little bit of something. Or you can try and get a third out of him. Or you can try and get a fourth out of him. Or you can use him as a package up piece to move up in your draft. There's a lot of different options you can do. Or you can get some patch up work like Jimmy G or Andy Dalton or something like that in season. There's a lot of different things you can do here to help you out. There's some trades that's not going to happen, like Thomas or James Conner that we saw here. That's not going to happen. If he's having a hard season like he did the last couple of years, you're not going to see him traded for Adam Thielen in a lot of leagues. That happened here, but that's not always going to be a case. You're just going to have to take what you get if you're going to try and move him on the market. If you're looking to buy, you're going to be able to catch him very cheap in rookie drafts. I can tell you that, and possibly over the summer when people look back at him, what he's done over the last few years, and people try to speculate, people are going to try and get him on the cheap. His value will start to rise a little bit in August, early September, as he's looking healthy, if he is going into the season, if things are looking promising. So you really want to time things up, but that's how I'm seeing things going on in the markets. But those are 3 wide receivers that we're covering this week. Let me know in the comments if there's anybody you need me to cover. I'll have running backs out soon. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on the way out. That way you don't miss a show. That way you don't miss any of these trades and market values. I'm just here to let you know about the Dynasty stock market. But I want to thank you for watching. I'll catch you on the next video.